Today on Ridge Roamer, my Triumph Scrambler 400X is going to get the metal skid plate, the engine guards, and the upper crash bars, as well as a tank pad. And I'm going to show you how to install them. First thing I want to address is the instructions. So the instructions are not included with the kit, but there are links to the instructions. I'm also going to show it, so we're going to cut to the screen, and here are the accessory fitting instructions. Let's see here, it shows you all the components, everything included. The instructions actually start on page 4 with the fitment of the lower crash guards, the engine guards. Then there are specific instructions for things only for the S, some for the X. It also goes through and explains you've got spacers, you got all kinds of stuff that you use. And then at the very end of page 7, it's fitment of accessory kit for the upper crash bars, and it shows you everything you need to do there. But what really sticks out to me, what's most important to notice, is that on page 9 starts separate instructions for fitment of accessory kits, both upper and lower. That is where you want to start, because otherwise you will end up trying to use spacers you don't need, and it's just going to be a nightmare. So looking through that, we can see and refer back to the earlier instructions on everything that needs to happen. So that's what we're going to take care of right now. We've got to remove that skid plate to get into everything anyway, and so while we have that off, we'll go ahead and install the metal one. First, the unboxing. They were all packaged very well, so that's all the materials that was actually used to keep these safe in shipping. But there's the metal skid plate. There are a couple of brackets and a bag full of hardware. I'm pretty sure the brackets are the same as what's on there. And just there in case you're adding this to the speed. There's your lower engine guards and new bolts and hardware, and your upper guards and new bolts and hardware. Well, that one's pretty straightforward. You just stick it on. But here is a fast forward to the future showing every tool I used. Well, now that they're installed, here's everything that I used. Some sort of jack to hold the engine up while you're removing bolts. Just as an engine support, I used a little piece of wood as well. 4mm Allen, some sort of punch and hammer to remove longer bolts. Alternatively, you can use one of the other bolts that goes through. Got a ratchet extension, a 12, 13, 14, and 16mm sockets, and then a 16 and 14mm combination wrench, and a knife to open up the boxes. The first thing we've got to do is find a way to support the lower part of the engine. You can use blocks, you can use a floor jack. I have a motorcycle specific scissor lift here, so that's what I'm using. The reason is because we have to remove this bolt right here, which goes all the way through the engine to this nut here. This side is a 16mm where the nut is, and this side is a 14mm. And then for the upper mounts, we're going to go to these plugs right here and actually just pop them out. Inside there are threaded holes. That's where the upper mount goes. And for the upper mount, we're going to use one of these spacers on each side with one of the smaller bolts. First things first, let's go ahead and crack this nut off of here. With the nut off and the engine supported, we're going to go ahead and drive the bolt through. And we can pull it out the rest of the way from this side. Now, the easiest way to get this started is actually going to be to put the bolt through the upper guard hole. Get that started up here by hand. And you're not going to want to tighten anything all the way up front. We're going to get everything fitted before we do anything finalized. Take our longer bolt, get it slid back through. Do the same thing on the other side. Do the bolt through the upper spacer, get it started, while at the same time sliding the lower mount through our bolt, and we'll capture that with the nut. Now that is installation of the upper. Now we'll move on to the lower. Now that the engine bolt is back in, you can remove your support underneath, and we need to remove the factory plastic skid plate, which requires a 4mm Allen, and then we're also going to loosen the exhaust. We've got to do that at the manifold, which is a 13mm, and then underneath as well. Well, 4 bolts, that's off. It's a 12mm socket to get that lower support bolt off. It says to remove the entire exhaust header. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't think we have to. Time will tell, but I think all we need to do is have this loose enough that we can get up under there and replace that spacer. So with that bolt backed out enough, this spacer is going to drop out. Now with the stock plastic skid plate off, we do have to re-support the engine because we've got to use this engine mount bolt again to put the lower bars on. Now this spacer came from between the engine and the exhaust, and this part here's got to slide in. So we're going to start with the right hand side. It is marked right. It's an OKR. We're essentially going to slide this piece down in here to get it lined up. Get that lined up top, and put our engine bolt back in, and then we'll connect the two of these on the side here. Now the bolt that comes with the upper crash bars is long enough for the upper crash bars, but the bolt that comes with the lower crash bars is actually a little bit longer. So we'll go ahead and use the longest one. Alright, get that started. Get this pried up into place. Basically all I did was use a bolt, pull this exhaust away from the engine a little bit so I could slide that in there. Now on the very front of this mount, these two side pieces are going to connect. So in order to do that, we're going to slide in this little connection bar they've got, a couple of bolts. Get that started. And then they've got a cover for it. It's a little rubber sleeve with the Triumph logo. So we'll go ahead and slide that on. So that we're done with installation. Slide it back over the center. Now the left-hand side is going to be easier because we've already got this bolt through. There's nothing to clear there. We've got something to line up here. So we'll go ahead and line that up, slide that over. First thing I'm going to do is put the front bolt on, get that started. Again, everything is loose right now. We just want to know that we are connected. We can get this bolt, or we can get this nut started. And again, now that we've added to this lower bolt, this is the stock one. There's a longer one included with the engine bar kit. So we're going to get that started through the bracket on the engine guard. Then we're going to use the smallest of the 3 black spacers, and then go back through the factory mount and into the lower exhaust bracket. There we go. And I'm going to cheat on this one. Alright, that's tight. Well, not tight, but secure. Now that we've got all the bolts through, all the nuts on for the upper and lower crash guards, we're going to go back around, tighten everything up. The exhaust manifold, all these bolts up front, put this plastic or this rubber piece over the middle, and then we should be all set. So I'm going to start from the bottom, work my way up, and make sure everything gets tightened down. You may have to get a little creative with this engine through bolt, because may need an extension, may need to grab a hold on both sides at the same time. Perfect. When we get to the skid plate, we're going to install our rubber bushings into the big holes down here. We've got bolts, or we've got metal spacers that'll go from the top side, and then new bolts, silver, that'll match for that on the rear, and then new ones for the front as well. I usually just get them started on one side by hand, and then use something, screwdriver or something small, to push them in, and then you can play with them a little bit, get the back side through properly. Okay. And we'll put our spacers in here. Go. And these bolts will go through here. Small ones up front. And if you have questions, you can just refer to how the plastic one was set up. Realistically, looks like you can just reuse the plastic hardware if you want to. Get it started on the bottom, so we know we're lined up. With that lined up, we're going to get the metal over these rubber bumpers and the side plates. Don't worry, if you do happen to mess one up, you're actually getting more included with the kit. In front, I'm going to go ahead and tighten off one. And it's on and secure. Installation of the tank pad is extremely easy. Simply going to pull it out of the package. Figure out where we want this to mount, roughly in about here, essentially to protect zippers and belts from coming in contact with the metal, the paint of the tank. Get a nice little easy tab to hold on to. Remove that to expose the adhesive. Get it lined up perfectly. You can measure. I like to do stuff by sight. Lay it down. Make sure that comes in contact everywhere. And that's complete. And what's left over here is a variety of stock brackets, bolts, brackets that were included, but I didn't need to use because the bike already has them. Plugs that came out of the bike, exhaust gasket that I didn't need to replace, all kind of stuff, as well as the stock skid plate. And now, finished product. Upper, lower engine guards, and the aluminum skid plate. Very happy with the look, very happy with the protection. All Triumph factory parts, so everything fits exactly, works perfectly, looks amazing. And it's going to keep us from having any issues off-road. If we get tipped over somehow, protect that engine, protect the tank. Very, very happy. Hopefully this helps you guys. If it did, hit that like button. If you want to see more content, feel free to subscribe. I'll be doing a bunch more installations on this Scrambler 400X. If you want to look at how I did the high fender kit, I've got a video on that. Also have a video on this awesome Chiggy AIO 5 Lite, which is a Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, navigation, tire pressure monitor, camera, you name it, whole tech package. So check that video out as well. Appreciate you guys joining me. Have a great day. Ride safe.